And welcome back to the Showrunner. This is episode number 115 of the Showrunner. So excited that you have decided to join us for another week of talking about how to create a remarkable podcast and how to drive meaningful results from that podcast. I am your host, Jared Morris, also the host of the Assembly Call podcast on the Brink and Site Success. And I'm joined by a special guest who we will introduce here in just a second, and joined, as I always am, by Johnny Nastor, the host of Hack the Entrepreneur. Although, Johnny, you are really freaking me out today because it's a role reversal. I'm recording this in a vintage T-shirt, and you've got a button-down shirt on.
I was
crazy,
trying to just step up my game and match you a bit, and then you were trying to step down your game a bit and match me, and we didn't talk about it. This is why communication is important.
That's true. That's true. Well, fortunately, we're not broadcasting these live on video or anything, so it is okay. Look, we're really excited about today's episode. As you know, if you've been listening to the last few episodes, we're doing a series on reassessment, basically just taking individual elements of your show and reassessing them to see if what you're doing is if that's the right thing that you should be doing, if there are ways that you can change, improve your show. And today we're going to talk about podcast audio production, and if there are maybe some ways that you can improve your podcast audio production. And to do that, we have our special guest, Toby Lyles from 24 Sound, Johnny, who you and I have worked with for a long time. And frankly, I don't think that there's anybody better to actually do audio production and to talk about audio production. And that's why we're very excited to have Toby here with us for this episode. Toby, welcome to the Showrunner.
Well, thank you, Jared. I appreciate that. I'm honestly feeling like I underdressed a little bit today. I don't know if I was kind of in the middle between you guys, but I'm glad you guys didn't, or we all didn't end up matching shirts. That's if there's ever a problem.
Cool.
Yeah. That would be awkward. That would definitely be awkward. Hey, before we hop in, until we've got some really interesting topics that we want to address with you today, I do want to remind folks, and I mentioned this on last week's episode when we talked about positioning. The episode was, "Is your podcast positioning on point?" We do have a new course about podcast positioning. And if you go to showrunner.fm/podcast-positioning, you will find some information on that course. We just put it out. It's still in the kind of what I call the soft beta launch. So, I mean, there's a really discounted price there. You can get in. All the content is, there and ready for you. But obviously with any beta launch, we'd love to get your feedback on it, ways that we can improve, that kind of thing. And eventually we'll do a full launch of it. But if you want to take your podcast positioning to the next step, make sure that you're doing everything the way that you should be doing it, go to showrunner.fm/podcast-positioning and get some more information on that and see if hopping into that course, especially now when the price is as low as it will ever be, is something that you want to do. Okay. With that said, I think we're ready to hop in here and talk about some audio production. Johnny, do you have any initial thoughts, introductory thoughts about audio production and reassessing your audio production before we start peppering Toby with questions?
I'm glad we have an expert here to talk about it, and that you and I aren't trying to pretend that we're the experts on it, because as soon as Toby came onto this video, he was already giving me pointers on how I should make my audio better. So I'm glad that we're not trying to be like, I'm glad we're self-aware enough to know that we need to bring in somebody like Toby to sort of share his wisdom with us on these things, because we've admitted we're not the technical sort of side of podcasting. We're the podcast positioning side and those sorts of things. So yeah, I think there's nobody better to learn this part from than Toby. So I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, I think we could do a pretty good job of coaching people on how to get the minimum level of quality that you need. We know enough about that. But if we're talking about reassessing and, how could you take it to the next level? How could you make your audio sound better? How could you make your processes more efficient? That's where we want an expert like Toby to come in. And I'm excited because I feel like you and I will probably learn probably many somethings from this episode. So with that said, Toby, let's hop into this and let's start talking about this. And I've got a few questions prepared, but we can just use those as kind of jumping off points for wherever we think it's reasonable to go here. But let me kick things off with this question to you. I'm curious, when you are talking to new podcasters who don't have a lot of experience creating quality audio, and I'm assuming you probably come into contact with people like this a lot, what are some of the basic tools that you suggest that they start out with so they can get to kind of what we just mentioned, that minimum level of audio quality that you need to be taken seriously with a podcast?
That's a good question. It's actually kind of a loaded question, only because if you're starting a podcast, there's 1,000 ways. It depends on what you're doing with your podcast. So people say, well, what do I need? It's like asking a realtor, what kind of car do I need? Well, it depends who you're selling your houses to. Are you mid-range, single, housing lower class families? Are you selling to the rich and famous? And so it depends on what kind of car. But that said, the Audio Technica, you guys have said this before, ATR 2100 is like easy, simple, cheap, lots of options. So that's just, that's the easy microphone to start with.
And what about other tools? Like what people should use to edit with, some of the other things that you need. Because obviously, the microphone is one thing, but then there's other things that you have to do to get the podcast ready for listening.
Yeah, that's a great question. I don't sorry, I'm thinking.
Like for example, with what you would use to edit, like, do you basically suggest that, go with GarageBand? It comes free on your Mac. Just use that. Windows, what is it?
Audacity.
Audacity. That's what I was thinking. I kept wanting to say Audition, but recently having gotten Audition, I know that is not free.
No, yeah, those are the two. They're free. They're pretty easy. It depends a little bit about who you are and how much you want to accomplish, how willing you are to invest in it. But if you're looking for a free resource, those are great. That said, if you don't mind spending a little bit of money in Audition, you trade a little bit of money for your time back, and it's not, you don't gain a lot of features, but you just gain a workflow that should be a lot faster and easier. So if you've got time and you like to fiddle with things and you don't mind doing that, then grab a free one and just start going hacking at it. If you want something that's going to be a little bit easier and hopefully you'll move faster, then grab a professional, something like Audacity, or I mixed them up.
Audition.
Like Audition, yeah. Something like that.
So the irony here, and you and I have talked about this over email, Toby, is I recently got Audition. And I've actually found that it's made my process take longer and more difficult than using my old templates on GarageBand. And I am 100% certain that this is user error, not software error. So, it is important to remember that there will be a learning curve. And if you're going to invest in a software product like that, you should probably also take the time to really learn how it works. I know, you have a course that helps teach people that, but it's not like you can just magically spend this $300 and everything becomes super simple. Like, you've got to actually learn the tool. And so GarageBand is very simple, very easy, and if that's all you need, that's fine. But if you're going to do Audition, my advice to someone who is, kind of dabbling in it myself right now, you're going to have to take a little bit of time and learn how it works to see the payoff in, efficiency, quality, all that stuff.
Definitely. Yeah.
So I was going to ask you one question, Toby, but I think that would be jumping ahead. If we're talking about people starting out, absolute beginners, I find that I didn't so much get stuck with it, I guess, because I had sort of a bit of an audio background with music. But we're talking about microphone, maybe some sort of mixer, but you just said a microphone. The microphone you mentioned, the AT2100, I think, is USB. I believe it plugs straight into your laptop. GarageBand or the other one that's free, Audacity. Those are both free, but one side of it's sort of the recording process, and then one side is what we call post-production, right? If somebody's an absolute beginner and they don't quite understand any of this, is there a side of that they should focus on more to them? Like, is it easier for them to fix a junk recording, or is it easier for them to make a good recording sound decent, even if they don't know really how to edit?
That is a wise and astute question. Yeah, record well first. So you cannot fix you can fix, but it's so much more work to fix bad recordings. So with audio, the rule is what you start with, you always finish with. So good foundations, start with a good microphone first.
Because I feel like the audition, when we start talking about audition and stuff, to me, that's serious post-production. So you can really fix things up if you're good and you know what you're doing. But if you, like Jared used to record in a closet when we started, with clothes all around you and a mic in your hand, and it sounded really, really good.
It sounded awesome.
And then all it was really just cutting and pasting into the right order we wanted in GarageBand with your template. It wasn't like we had to go a whole bunch of post-production. And with the AT2100, I think you can do that pretty well as long as you record it in a place that isn't like mine, which is basically a glass box and echoey. You need sort of different, I guess, equipment to do that. But I like at least telling people that if they're going to start, to focus maybe on that sort of recording side of it rather than, because that's crucial, I think, for people.
Well, and I really like your question, John, and it leads into the next question that I wanted to ask Toby, which is, what is the biggest mistake that you see podcasters make when it comes to getting quality sound, like especially in the beginning? Because I know, like for me, for example, you're right, Johnny, I had to retreat to a closet with clothes because I didn't really have a good room in my house. But, you know, I would record and it would be all kind of echoey. And I figured, okay, you can probably just fix that in post-production. But I learned, as Toby said, it's so much harder to do that. If you just get it right at the source, it puts you so much further ahead, you know, certainly from a quality standpoint and definitely from a time and efficiency standpoint. So, you know, I have to imagine, Toby, that one of the mistakes that people make is maybe not understanding the impact of acoustics, you know, in the room that they're recording in. What are some other mistakes that you see beginning folks make that if they just have, you know, a little bit of knowledge, a little bit of insight, they can avoid even from the beginning?
Well, I'll say the one thing that both of you have done, regardless of how much you know, you both have been willing to invest, and you focused on audio. You realize that even if you can get in simple, it's better to think about that first, because that affects everything. And I think that's, if there was one mistake, that's the mistake, is just, you know, I just want to get a podcast out. I'm trying to go fast and I just need to build an audience. Let's, you know, whatever some blog I read on the internet says to buy is the best mic. And it just ends up in wasted money and wasted time recording.
You know, and Johnny, one of the things that we've always talked about is, you know, kind of earning the right to invest more in your equipment. Like I've got the PR40 now, but I did however many hundreds of episodes, you know, before that, before I got this microphone. And so it does seem like there's probably a fine line there between, you don't want to overinvest in the beginning, especially if you're new and haven't proven the concept yet. You wouldn't want to spend, you know, $400 on a boom arm and a mic and, you know, foam for your walls and all that stuff. You know, that might be something like that next level investment you may want to wait a little bit for, but definitely don't, you know, think that, oh, I got to get this podcast out there, so let me use my, you know, my headphone microphone to do it. You certainly want to put that minimum level of investment in at least to get going with a good mic from the start. Right.
And so can I take it back to the basic level again? For people just starting out, we talk about the AT2100, ATR, whatever it is. And then there's like the Blue Yeti, which a ton of people use. The Blue Yeti, I believe, is twice as much money as the ATR 2100. But to me, the ATR 2100 is way easier to get a good sound. And they're not just two different microphones. They're actually two different complete styles of microphone. Could you just quickly explain the two different styles and maybe what people should be looking for?
Yeah, I'm glad you brought up the Blue Yeti. The Blue Yeti, I call it my nemesis. It is. It's more expensive, and well, everybody says it's such a good investment. The problem with it is that it's a condenser microphone, and condenser microphones work, but they're just a lot more sensitive. And so, and the Blue Yeti is just amazingly sensitive. I don't know what they did, but it's incredible. Great in a recording studio, terrible in your house. So you're going to pick up everything, your refrigerator in the background, your cat meowing, every single echo in your room, even in the back. It's the worst. I almost never hear good recordings out of that Blue Yeti, though it's a fantastic microphone. The dynamic is a lot less sensitive, which is the 2100, and so it's a dynamic microphone, and it's kind of just a point and shoot. You stick your mouth really close to it, and it picks up the sound.
And I think that's the difference, right? Like dynamic, really, you have to be within a very short range of the mic to pick it up. Condenser picks up basically the whole room.
Like the PR40 that we're using right now, Johnny, you and I, is dynamic.
Is dynamic.
Correct.
100%. Right. And so I was just, if somebody is in a store and trying to find out what microphone and somebody's talking them into something, I would be going for dynamic over condenser if you're just starting out, almost no matter what that microphone is, because to me, again, you're starting out easier with a better recording for people. And I had a friend that just texted me not that long ago. He started a podcast again, and he's like, it just sounds like everything you could possibly hear, birds outside that I can't even hear. And I was just like, all I responded was, I don't know what mic you're using, but I'm going to guess a Blue Yeti. And then at the same time, like seconds later, there was a picture he had sent me of it. And I sent him a link to the ATR 2100. I was like, this is what you need, man. And he's like, okay, perfect. And now he's happy with it. But
yeah,
cool. Thanks for the clarification, because I didn't actually know about that for years and years and years. And that helped me just knowing the distinction.
Yeah. And that ATR mic, that's the one that I ordered for my co-hosts on the assembly call when it was kind of time for them to take the next step up. And it provides really good quality. I'm surprised by how little it costs for the quality that you get from it. So that's a good one for people to consider. So Toby, once people are comfortable with the basics, like let's say, they've got the ATR 2100, they use GarageBand, they've got a nice template set up, like their audio is fine. Maybe it's even good. It's like no audience members are clamoring for better. Like it's good. But now they're getting serious about the podcast. Maybe they want to invest a little bit more. Maybe they want to go from good to great or fine to good. What are some of the next steps that people can take to, number one, improve quality, but also number two, improve efficiency? Because that does become, kind of a next concern once you get it down. Is okay, now what can I do to save time? Still maintain the same quality, but save time. And then obviously if you can improve quality and improve efficiency, at the same time, you want to do both of them. But what are some next level steps people can take to do that?
I like how you put efficiency in there. That's a huge deal. Well, I have what's called the CPR of audio. And there's a handful of things that people don't think about when picking audio. So yeah, like grab, if you're just starting out, grab the ATR 2100 and make some sound happen. But if you're ready to really think about what you're doing, it's similar to your podcast positioning course, which I love, because people often don't think about how they're positioning, how they're reaching into the market, who their audience is, everything that you guys are so good at helping start with. And so with audio, it's the same way. Audio is like your sound signature of who you are, and it also it affects whether or not you're even heard or not, if it's breaking. So the CPR is what I call credibility, personality, and reliability. So the first thing people are missing all the time is credibility. And that goes back to quality. If you've got echoes everywhere, we talked about that already, then nobody's going to take you serious. There's even a study about science for scientists specifically, but scientists who are being interviewed, and it turns out that if their audio is poor, people are much less likely to take their findings seriously. So same person, same topic, same great wisdom, people will blow them off if their microphone is the wrong microphone or they're talking on the phone. So just getting started is and having decent quality, like we said, is the first thing that you want to think about. And then, but that changes too, because the next one's personality. So it depends on what you're doing and where your podcast is going. So let's pretend your podcast is, if you like, you guys have a podcast about podcasting. So right now we're on Google Hangouts, and it's not like we got pristine audio here. If you're listening on Google Hangouts, it sounds like Google Hangouts, which is okay, because the audience is podcasters and they're kind of used to that. We're all really used to listening to Skype audio and Google Hangouts audio. But let's pretend as you guys had a podcast and this was actually reaching to New York marketing firms about how to do podcasting right. You probably wouldn't be doing it on Hangouts. You'd probably be spending a lot more money on post-production, and you would have a really clean sound because it's a different audience. Same thing if you're reaching ranchers or you're reaching in fact, I had as an analogy, I had a friend who was a salesman of software, and he's from Colorado, but he was going to sell some software in Wyoming. Now I'm from Wyoming, so I understand this. He went into some small town in Wyoming, flew in, got some little dinky plane, gets in there, lands, and the lady at the rental desk for the car says, "Hey, what kind of car do you want?" And he says, "Just anything will do." There's some cute little red car outside. He's like, "That's great. That's cheap." And she's like, "You sure you want to do that?" He's like, "Yeah." It's like, "No, I'm just going to upgrade you for free and we'll get you the pickup truck." The whole lot is pickup trucks, one little red car. So she gets him a pickup truck and he goes out. He's selling to ranchers the software, and he starts driving through the town. He's telling me the story. He's like, everybody drove pickup trucks. There wasn't one car. I think that little red car was the only little one. And so like the personality of the car had to match what he was doing and the personality of his audience. So depending on what you're doing, if it's an interview podcast or if it's a live event podcast, or the purpose of your podcast and your audience, that's where you need to really think about how does my sound match my format. And so that's one thing that people really miss. And the same side is does your mic match your voice? I had a friend who was using that same microphone that you guys are using, and he sounded terrible on it. Sounded all honky and mid-rangey and kind of like a nerd. And it didn't work for him, right? You can't be an expert if you sound like a nerd. Okay, so that's the last, and then the last one is reliability. Just like you said, Jared, it's got to work for you. It's got to work for you. So if you're fixing your audio later, whatever it is, if it's crashing, if you have to make sure you pick the right microphone every time, and you always forget to pick the right microphone, and so your onboard mic on your laptop picks it up, or whatever silliness, that's a big deal. And it shouldn't take you lots of time. You should have this workflow that sounds good and just works and it's bulletproof. And if something crashes, like Jared, you're saying you've got a backup going on right now, right? You're recording twice.
Yep.
Yeah, because you've been around here for a long time. It's not your first rodeo.
Yes.
So right, that needs to
always have backups and sometimes triple backups going.
That's right. Yep. So that's reliability.
So credibility, personality, and reliability. I love those. And reliability is something, but say we have the decent microphone, like you said, and we're trying to be reliable, but things still do slip through. This is just something I want to ask you because I saw a conversation about this yesterday on Reddit. Some podcasters talking, and I had forgot about this tool, and I would like to know if this is something you would recommend to more beginner people. But how levels can end up different, just accidentally, whether not being super reliable. And then to get your levels and your sort of loudness properly, somebody was just like, how do I get this right so it sounds like other shows that are more professionally done? Everybody was like, Ophonic. Ophonic is what you need to use. I completely forgot about Ophonic, but I know when I started many, many podcasts ago and I was doing stuff myself, somebody had told me about it and I was like, whoa, it sounds all pro after the fact. You actually are an audio editor. Somebody starting out, is this something they should stay away from, or is this something they should sort of steer themselves to actually help out until they can get a real editor in place?
Greg Ophonic, he's like a genius, and he it's the only thing of its kind. There's no other place that you can get that kind of just throw your audio in and it comes out beautiful. The loudness is right. He does this super intelligent way of doing loudness. It's incredible. That being said, and if you do, by the way, if you do use Ophonic, throw your voice in, just the audio tracks, and as separate as possible. Throwing the whole interview in can work, but is not as effective. Especially if you have bumpers on top of it and music in the middle. Clean audio, if you're going to use Ophonic, again, if it's messy audio, it can help, but There's nothing like clean audio. So yes, it's a fantastic tool, and if you're doing it yourself, I'd recommend it. You can take my course. I'd show you how to do it.
You show people how to do it manually, or show them how to use Alphonic?
That's a good question. I show them how to do it manually in Adobe Audition or anything else that you're using.
Okay.
And of course, I would fully recommend them take a course from somebody like you. But when you are just starting out and there's something screws up at the last minute and you got to publish, there are things like Alphonic that can kind of sometimes save you, at least to get it to that certain level of audio quality. That's what I used it for. I mean, my episodes were still not really that good because they were edited by somebody who had never been trained how to actually edit properly. But the levels were good at that point. But the rest of it was kind of like, oh, well, this is very amateur.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Alphonic is just so cool. Yeah.
Cool. So I want to go back to something that you mentioned earlier, and I agree. I love the credibility, personality, and reliability. By the way, you had a phrase in there. I think you were talking about the ATR 2100. Like, yeah, you can get that mic and just make sound happen. That's a great phrase. Make sound happen. Like, I feel like you should have 24 sound T-shirts where it's just like make sound happen. But going back to the personality, and you and I have talked a lot about this because we've worked with kind of getting my audio sounding right because I'm perpetually dissatisfied with how I sound. And I was using this headset microphone for a little while. And I liked it because I do a lot of video and I don't necessarily like having the big PR40 like right in my face when I'm doing video. And I thought a headset would help. And for a good month there, I kind of liked the audio. But as I listened to it more, I hated it because I just felt like it didn't sound like me. And when I'd listened to the PR40, I was like, okay, that sounds more like what I feel like I sound like. But that's just my own like interpretation of what I sound like. So how should people make those kinds of decisions? Like, I'm not trained in this stuff, but I kind of feel like I have an intuition on what I feel like sounds better or worse, especially on my own audio after editing 1,000 some episodes. Like, is there a pointer or two that you can give people who aren't trained in this kind of stuff for what you should listen for or what it should sound like to know that this mic fits with your voice, that kind of thing? Because it's a very obtuse concept for me, and I've been thinking about it, for many years now. So I'm sure for other people it is too.
Well, it goes back to your positioning course that you talked about, and so you have to think, who am I, and who am I reaching, and then finding resources to help you with that. So some of those resources could be other podcasts that you feel like match your style or match your audience, or just audio in general. It doesn't have to be a podcast. So something that matches. And that's like the secret sauce, by the way, of finding a really good sound is finding another sound that you feel like is similar in the direction you want to go, and finding ways to copy that sound. Every professional mixer, all the pop songs that are out there, they all take another song that sounds really close to the goal they're looking to achieve, and they put it right under, and then they try to match it. So having something to reference is critical. And then your gut is your gut's a good thing. When you do 1,000 some episodes, like, you're right. And then the last is talk to somebody who knows, and that can really help you. And so anybody who's working in audio, anybody who is even in marketing, someone who has that kind of ear for that, maybe more of the artistic side or more of the personality side. Good places to start.
Someone like you, because I can say you've helped me out a ton, just gain a better understanding of this stuff. Along those same lines, getting back to something that you said earlier about this, you also talked about your audio matching like the venue or the medium. If this is going to be a live event, or if it's going to be, a monologue, or if it's going to be an interview, what is the best way, kind of along the same token, to know how that should sound? I'm assuming it will be, listen to other examples of it done right for the kind of medium that you're going for, and then try to match that. Is it kind of the same thing?
Yeah, I mean, it just takes a level of emotional intelligence to understand what's happening. So yeah, so finding audio to match. I mean, if you're going for a news thing and you have a little siren in the background, that's okay, right? If you're doing a swim podcast and if you have some echoey swim sounds in the background, that also works. And you just kind of you have to go with your gut a little bit on those things. But you think, okay, what's my message? What's my space? What's my goal? Do I need music under this? Do I need there's so many types. I wish I could give you a straighter answer on that. But going off your gut and talking to other folks, again, getting other resources. Hey, does this match my what I'm going for? And even just recognizing it, just clarifying.
Yeah. Well, there's definitely no better way to improve efficiency and improve quality than hiring a really good audio engineer, like hiring someone like you who would actually be able to do it. So how would someone know? I mean, beyond just having an unlimited budget, and they could just, do whatever. How would someone know? And let's assume for a moment that they have some scarce resources. So this would be a difficult decision for them. How would they know that they're ready to hire someone like you or to bring an editor into the process?
I like that question. I think the first thing you need to do is you need to talk to some editors. So no matter what your budget is, I always wish people would just call and just ask, because we're really good at finding. I mean, every podcast is in a different place, so you may or may not be ready to hire, but there's so many different ways of solving the same problems at different price levels. And you can help. I've trained people to help people with their podcast. There's always some creative solution. So if you've got a good producer that you're talking to, they're not just going to say, hey, it's, whatever price per podcast, take it or leave it. If they actually care about you and what you're doing, they're going to look to help you and help you solve those problems. So that's the first thing, is just talk to them. And I think, money's the big question often in these. And it's just, how much time am I spending versus how much money am I going to get? Is there ways to monetize the podcast so that I can pay for an editor? Usually it's not that hard to make enough money to pay for an editor. There's a couple ways to start.
Cool.
Does that help at all?
No, it does. It does a lot. And I think what you said about going into it kind of with an open mind, not that like, okay, there's a set price for everything and yada, yada, but that, you find a good editor, they will work with you and you might be able to find out a custom way, and it might be different than what you were expecting, but you just have to have those conversations to know and to find out. And I'd never really thought about it from that perspective before, but that's a good way to look at it.
Yeah.
So
good.
Johnny, what other questions do you have for Toby? This has been really good stuff. Toby, really good insight. I appreciate you coming on and relaying this stuff, because you're so much better at it than Johnny and I are.
I feel like we've covered a lot, from like just gut feelings to literally like, here's how microphones work or something. I don't know if we should overwhelm people too much. We should definitely make it very clear where to track down Toby, so people can. I'm sure Toby, you'd be more than happy to answer people via email or something if they had follow-up questions. Otherwise, I often fear with this stuff is that we give really good ideas and then we give way more good ideas, and then people they don't know where to start. You know what I mean? And it's like, it's really hard, right? Because every show, every person behind the show all have different reasons for their show. Like you mentioned that, Toby, like realizing what your show, like what's the point? Like, it's true, if you're trying to create a show so you can reach like marketing executives or something in New York City, it's like you might probably be way more likely to hire an editor at the very beginning than if you and your buddies are doing just a random show about you guys making jokes and like having beer. You're probably not going to be like, well, we should really invest in an editor now for this show so that nobody can listen to it but us. But if it was sort of a business reason behind it, so I think that people will know. I think that the fact that you gave them that idea to sort of look internally about what it is they're trying to do and accomplish, I think people will know. I think people will know if somebody like Toby is right for them, or if they just need to keep recording with their buddies. So I don't know. I like it.
Mm-hmm. Well, and Toby, and you can give some more insight on this, but your website is 24sound.com, and that's spelled out TWENTYFOUR sound.com. And Toby actually has a podcast. It's called the Learn Podcast Production Podcast. The latest episode on your site, Toby, is 116, which means that you are one ahead of us because this is episode number 115. And what I like about your show is you hit a bunch of different stuff. You know, it's like your most recent episode is repairing sample rate dropouts from Zencaster, Skype, and other online recording products, which is, you know, a pretty specific thing that you're helping people do. But then the episode before that, you had building a podcast business with Chris Connor. Chris Connor, you know, guy we know from Life Science Marketing Radio and an original member of the Showrunner podcasting course. So, you know, you cover a wide range of topics there. So we highly recommend your show for people who want to continue to learn more about podcasting, especially from the audio side. That's a really great resource for folks.
Well, I have fun with the podcast. The goal of that, thank you. The goal of that is simply just it's like the way to give back and just help with all of the problems that anybody who's trying to be serious about the podcast is about podcasting, and they're, you know, and they're deep, they're willing to dive into the technology and get it done. That's what I'm trying to do with that. But hey, if people want to reach, and I really like the Showrunner audience. And so yeah, feel free to email me. My email is toby@24sound.com. It's all spelled out, all one word, and or my phone number. You can hit me up directly at 530-339-5643, whatever works for you. And if you have any question about audio, if you don't know if you're trying to figure out if your sound's right, like you've talked about, Jared, or you're having equipment problems all the time, or you're just getting started and you want to know what to do, I'll give anybody who's on the Showrunner podcast 3 free 30 minutes of just, let's sit down and talk. Let's solve your problems. Let's get you started right, which I don't normally do. But
wow, that's pretty fantastic right there. That's pretty great.
Giving out your phone number, though, that's bold.
That is bold.
I used to do that. I did that for a few episodes like 3 years ago now, and just in the last couple of weeks, I got another just random text like, "I'm here," because I remember saying it something like, "Literally, just text me right now and like tell me where it is you're listening." And I was just like, "Oh, I'm just walking down my sidewalk. I discovered your show like 2 weeks ago. I've been going through the back catalog of stuff." I was like, wow, I totally forgot that I did that, but there it is.
You didn't change your number, so yeah, you're still in.
That's awesome.
Very cool. All right. So we'll put that information in the show notes. Again, go to 24sound.com. And Toby, you know, if you're cool with it, we want to do some more Q&A episodes, kind of some mailbag episodes later on. And so we definitely love to bring you back for some of those, because again, you'll be able to provide insight on some of those more technical questions that'll be greater than ours. So if you're up for that, we'll schedule some of those for the future. And then we'll let everybody know and put out a call for questions and do all of that. But yeah, final thoughts. Remember to go to showrunner.fm/podcast-positioning. Take a quick look at our new podcast positioning course. See if that is right for you. It's the soft beta launch right now, so the pricing is pretty fantastic if you want to get in there early. And while you're there at showrunner.fm, make sure that you sign up for our email list. That is the place where we send out tips and information that will help make your podcast better, as well as information about new courses, new products, new resources that we have, because we are definitely, Johnny and I have a lot of plans for new things that we want to be creating, new resources that we want to develop for you to help make you a better showrunner. With that said, we appreciate you being here. We will talk to you next week as we continue our series on reassessment. We're going to talk about reassessing the experience that you are delivering to your audience, and if there are some ways, some things that you can do to take that experience to the next level that will give you the proper return on the investment of time and effort and resources that it will take to do them. So we're going to walk through that and hopefully help you bring a better experience to your audience. Thanks for being here, and we will talk to you then.
Take care, everybody.
Thanks.
All right. Beautiful. That was great, Toby. Thank you.
That was fun.
Yeah. Thank you, guys. You're doing. I love that. I love that course. That's like.
Thank you.
We,
Not
list,
because immediately.
we listed 3 questions for you, then we asked you like twice as many.
Yeah, I know.
Here's the exact questions we'll ask you, Toby, except for the.
And then here's some other ones.
Yeah. But when does it actually stick to the questions? I don't think I've ever been able to do that.
It's not as good as if it does.
No, the best interviews and discussions go off on their own.
Yeah.
So.
Well, I appreciate you guys having me on. I'm into investing in what you guys are doing with the. I just like you guys. I like what you're doing with the showrunner. Like you guys care. I feel like you stand out in the middle of this podcasty world. Like, oh, there's a couple of guys who really care, and you're really doing something good. So
Thanks, man.
I'm so happy just to be connected in any way.
Yeah, no, let's keep talking about the guest posts. I think all those ideas that you sent over were good. We're going to be relaunching the course, the main course officially, and kind of doing more from a community aspect, over the next 3 to 6 months. So we definitely, would love to have you as involved as possible, and recommending people your way is obviously such a natural transition, for certain people who aren't ready to do it all themselves. So let's start with, whenever you're ready to write guest posts, we're going to start putting some more emphasis on the blog too. So let's do that.
Okay, I can get cracking on those. I'll be honest, I'm slightly stumped about guest posts. I've got lots of ideas. Is there a direction that you guys just see a lot of, hear a lot of problems that you need solving?
We'll discuss that, and maybe we can send you over a few ideas, because we want to focus a lot on posts that will be good for SEO.
Yeah,
so
we'll do some research to figure out.
Let's do some research, and we can even start with some basic stuff. So yeah, let me do some research on that. I'll see what you sent over, and then or look at that again, and then we'll get you some more defined topics.
That'd be great, just so I know exactly what your audience is feeling. Because I could just write about stuff, but I'm going, well,
yeah.
I don't know if that's helpful.
Yeah, we'll do that.
Okay, cool. I appreciate that.
Cool, man. All right, Thank you, Toby.
Thank you, guys.
Fun. Thanks so much, Toby.
Yeah. Yep.
We'll talk to you soon.
Talk to you soon, man.
Yeah, bye.
All right.